collapsed. The subsequent notification revealed that he leveled up to level 2. Gazing at the defeated jackalope, he recalled his racial abilities. Without hesitation, he activated his demon intimidation skill. Shocking the jackalopes and making them faint from fear, he vanquished the prone jackalopes and added them to his inventory simultaneously. Leveling up days passed as Wu hunted jackalopes, his level eventually reaching 6. However, as his level increased, the experience offered by these low-level monsters decreased. He concluded that hunting jackalopes had become pointless for gaining experience and decided it was time to hunt higher-level monsters. Although the original game design gave players only one undistributed attribute point per level in this world, warriors typically boosted their strength, assassins honed their accuracy, and magicians elevated their intelligence. Wu pondered which attribute to enhance as he looked up. A gigantic creature in the distance caught his eye, shocking him. It was the Jackalope King, a level 10 prairie wild boss with a horn as hard as steel, known as a D-level creature. Its special ability was Bouncing Crash. Staring at it as it consumed a boar, Wu felt a jolt of fear. The Jackalope King was the first boss he designed for new players in this fantasy world. With its high HP, resilient skin, and terrifying speed, it was a nightmare for novices. The only realistic strategy for rookies and low-level players was to use a bow to attack it from a distance. Regrettably, all he had was a shovel, leaving him regretting his initial design. Deciding on agility, Wu added his 6 undistributed points, raising it to 21. As a demon player, he was physically superior to an average novice. For the pride of a demon, he resolved to challenge the Jackalope King. However, he quickly retreated, jesting that he was kidding, and derided the jackalopes as a bunch of stupid rabbits. Enraged, the Jackalope King bellowed. Wu retorted, questioning whether it truly thought he would fight. In reminding it of his numerical disadvantage, the jackalopes emerged from their burrows, chasing after him, led by the Jackalope King. The king prepared to use its Bouncing Crash to impale him with its horn. Wu sidestepped in the nick of time, narrowly avoiding a second attempt as well. He taunted the king effortlessly, evading its subsequent strikes, all while daring it to land a hit. His high agility allowing him to dodge effortlessly. Furious, the king summoned the jackalopes and ordered them to attack. Wu halted upon hearing the noise and turned back to see a horde of jackalopes led by the king hot on his trail. Making him panic, in a stuttering voice, he alerted others that the wild boss, the Jackalope King, had appeared and advised them to retreat swiftly. However, instead of fleeing, the other players seemed thrilled at the opportunity to secure rare loot drop by the king. They assured Wu that they'd join him, but rather than aiding him, they were also pursued by the Jackalope pack. The players curse Wu, but he merely grinned, excusing himself to prepare a meal for his child. He bid them farewell, leaving them baffled by his impressive speed and swearing vengeance on him for their current predicament. A few hours later, within Ma's building, he opened his apartment door and was welcomed by a cute man. She rushed to hug her father excitedly. He asked her what she did at home today, and Ming replied that the landlady had given her a picture book. After Zhuang Wu adopted Meng, landlady Mei Chen often visited, helping to take care of Meng. Ma also warned him sternly not to behave improperly towards Meng as they greeted each other cheerfully. Their stomachs growled with hunger. He assured men that he would prepare dinner. Since becoming a father, he had learned to prepare all sorts of fried rice dishes, such as egg and dried radish fried rice, ham fried rice, tomato fried rice, and more. However, when he opened the cabinet, it was bare. He checked the refrigerator and found it was empty too, leading him to realize they had run out of food. Ming saw her father's disheartened look and tugged at Wu's shirt. She cheerfully told him that she wasn't hungry. Observing her, he was reminded that Meng's diet for the past half-year had been nothing but mustard with rice, white sugar with porridge, and a single loaf of bread shared between the two of them. He apologized to Meng with a heavy heart, realizing she hadn't lived a good life since he adopted her. He asked if she wanted to eat fried chicken, to which Meng excitedly replied that she did. However, her excitement faded as she remembered something and told Wu that she didn't want it after all. When Wu asked why, she explained that if they spent too much money, he wouldn't be able to pay the rent. Who acknowledged that he still owed Ma 3 months' rent, maintenance and medical fees, but reassured Man that they could afford a lavish feast today, even though his balance was a mere 121 RMB. He assured Meng that from that day forward they would bid farewell to poverty. He then ordered a set of chicken that cost 120 RMB. He knew that in the post-disaster world the player had become everyone's idol, and many people admired them. These individuals either had a strong physique or unexplainable healing abilities, but most importantly, they were all wealthy, and as long as they possessed the player identity, they could enter dungeons. He also knew that unlike wild monsters, underground monsters dropped monster crystals. 1A level monster crystal could be exchanged for 500 RMB, a D level crystal for 1000 RMB, and a C-level monster crystal for 2000 RMB. This made him believe that becoming a player could also make him rich. Soon someone knocked on their door to deliver their Silver Arch family meal set. Wu and Meng ate it with fervor, tears streaming down their faces. As night fell, he tucked his sleeping men into bed, carefully pulling a blanket over her. He heard her mumble happily in her sleep about how lovely the French fries were. Subsequently, he returned to his computer desk and checked the chat forum. He saw news that at 4 p.m. that afternoon the Jackalope King had appeared in the city's suburbs, causing a rabbit horde. 4 players were attacked by the swarm of habits and hospitalized. Fortunately, they were rescued in time and their lives were no longer in danger. He was relieved that the players with him hadn't perished. If they had, he would have been plagued by guilt. The top and trending posts on the forum were all written by him after the disaster. Wu had been doing his best to assist others in this way. To the players, Wu was akin to a god. However, there were occasional accidents, like the incident where 50 people entered the dungeon and only 2 survived. According to one survivor, the team leader had over-relied on the dungeon guide and had failed to adapt. Players asked if the god's guide was truly helpful, but he knew that it was his worst guiding failure ever. This failure had led to the creation of multi-level dungeons and a new boss. He understood that it was all due to the system's updates and additional content in the game. In their harsh world, even if they succeeded 99 times, a single mistake could mean the end for them. After that incident, Wu gradually stopped uploading guides. The following day, he arrived at the prairie on the outskirts of a city. Aware of his current financial difficulties, he knew he needed to find a way to generate income. He loudly declared that he could forego a meal, but he couldn't bear to see Meng do the same. Surveying the boars nearby, he realized he was currently at level 6 and needed to reach level 10 by that morning. Therefore, he resolved to undertake the profession-changing mission, venture into the underground dungeon and gather monster crystals. He also understood that those fang boars were extremely aggressive and moved in packs. They didn't drop any crystals, making hunting them a futile endeavor, and this was why few players showed interest in them. However, unbeknownst to others, he had secretly included additional rewards in the game during its creation. Normally, hunting the same monster repeatedly would yield diminishing experience points, but after defeating 100 fang boars, a player's experience would double. With his trusty shovel, he struck a level 3 fang boar cub, understanding that reaching level 10 swiftly depended on his current hunt. A notification popped up informing him that he had successfully killed a fang boar cub, earning him 10 experience points. Energized, he continued his hunting spree. He felt a sense of pride looking in at the felled boars, but was taken aback when he noticed a group of massive angry boars behind him. He fled, apologizing to the boars in hot pursuit, but they persisted. A notification indicated that his demon imitation skill had been reset. Halting his flight, he slowly turned around, addressing the boars, indicating that it was now his turn to retaliate. Activating his demon imitation skill, he leaped towards the boars, causing them to collapse in fear. He methodically finished them off with his shovel, earning 50 experience points for each boar, helping him reach level 10 with ease and triggering the profession-changing mission. Upon accessing the game's interface, he was relieved to see that he had finally achieved level 10. Although it had taken him half an hour longer than expected, he still had ample time. His demon race profession-changing mission was to clear the Demon Wolf dungeon located on the northern side of the Sky Tree within 60 minutes. The Demon Wolf dungeon was an E-level underground dungeon suitable for teams of 5 players who had already changed professions and have levels ranging from 10 to 20. In this new fantasy world, there were 2 types of dungeons: underground dungeons and fixed underground dungeons. Fixed underground dungeons had set locations and physical gates. The monsters within these dungeons could not escape, and once players cleared these dungeons, they would reopen. On the other hand, random underground dungeons were spatial cracks that could randomly appear in the wilderness or the city. If left unclear for too long, the monsters could exit these dungeons and invade the earth. Moreover, these dungeons would vanish once players had cleared them. He felt the difficulty of the profession-changing mission was hellish, and suspected that the system was intentionally targeting him after humanity had unleashed nuclear weapons. On the Sky Tree, it formed a circular defense shield that blocked all technological devices. If a car approached the Sky Tree, it would spontaneously combust. If a battle jet flew into the shield, it would lose its propulsion, and no signals could penetrate the shield. Thus, horse-drawn carriages were the most common mode of transportation around the Sky Tree, offered free of charge by the Management Association for players climbing into a carriage. He admired the picturesque prairie, reflecting that nature could thrive better without human interference. Eventually, they reached their destination, and he was elated to finally arrive at the Demon Wolf dungeon. As was the case in many MMORPG games, some players would halt their level progression to assist other players. In exchange for money, these players advertised themselves as a carry team and promised to provide crystals and equipment to those willing to join them. Understanding the need to clear his mission within an hour, he contemplated enlisting some players to aid him. One player informed him they had a slot available and asked if he wished to join. When he inquired about the cost, the player responded that it was 20,000 RMB per journey with a promotional offer of 6 rides for the price of 5. The price stunned him, and he declined. He then noticed the group he had previously seen. Their levels seemed to have increased, and they were equipped with superior gear. Suddenly, Chen's in level 19 approached him, causing him to panic and hastily open his inventory. He knew he had to prevent them from recognizing him. Shenzhen mentioned that their team consisted of 4 players and needed 1 more. He then asked if you would like to join them. He looked up, donning a mask, which prompted Shenzhen to ask why he was wearing it. He explained that he was a miner, a profession dedicated to mining monster crystals within dungeons, and typically did not engage in battles. Shenzhen reassured him that his profession was not an issue and he could join them. Shenzhen also mentioned that the equipment loot would be divided amongst the 4 original members, but they would distribute the crystals equally with him or leave. They had not recognized him. He considered that their team's levels and equipment were on par with those of the carry teams. He concluded it was beneficial to ally with them and agreed to Shenzhen's proposition. Together, they opened the dungeon gate, greeted by pitch-black darkness. Since the Sky Tree inhibited all technological devices, they relied on torches for illumination instead of flashlights. Holding their torches, they ventured further into the dungeon, and he activates his demon's eyes. They notice shining crystals embedded in the ground, and the walls. Kaizio Zhang, level 18, was eager to collect the monster crystals, but Shenzhen cautioned him against it. A wolf emerged from the dark, its red eyes glaring at them with hostility. It was a level 12 armored demon wolf. Shenzhen warned his team about the armored demon wolves and instructed them to ready themselves for battle. While he drew the wolf's attention, one of the wolves lunged to attack them, but they released an arrow and struck it just as Shenzhen was closing in on it. Subsequently, Shenzhen decapitated it. Another wolf pounced on Chen Xin, but luckily Kiwi Gen's eye unleashed her magic in time, striking the wolf before it could attack Chen Xin. Shenzhen informed his team that both demon wolves have been dispatched and advised them to restore their energy. Before moving forward, he then addressed Wu, warning him about the dangers ahead and suggesting that he stay behind too. Then Shenzhen's team proceeded to continue, leaving him thinking that even though Shenzhen's group had good equipment, it was impossible for them to clear the demon wolf dungeon within an hour. He started digging with his shovel, knowing that the boss was very close to the entrance, just right underneath him. A minute later, his shovel reached the underground. He descended using a rope, but as soon as he set foot on the ground, he was greeted by a wolf looking up. He was stunned to see it. The wolf left to attack him. Fortunately, he dodged it, but suffered 10 points of damage from its sharp claws. He looked back and saw that the wolf had crashed on the ground. He opened his inventory, aware that at times like these he had to use it. Then he showed the wolf the dead jackalope, surprising it. The wolf's fierceness immediately changed into puppy-like behavior. Upon seeing the jackalope, he threw the bunny to it, knowing that the armored demon wolves living in dungeons had a poor diet and were irresistibly drawn towards jackalopes. He took his chance and continuously stabbed the armored wolf's belly, knowing that its weak point was the stomach. Then a notification popped up informing him that he had killed an armored demon wolf and obtained 100 experience points. He was glad that he gained a lot of experience and could also get a crystal, so he decided he should level up there. Suddenly, he heard something approaching from behind him. Turning around, he saw a swarm of wolves heading towards him. As they were about to attack him, he immediately jumped to the rope, shouting that he forgot the jackalope's smell would attract demon wolves. He ascended the rope swiftly, bidding farewell to the wolves. Once he reached the top, he told the wolves they couldn't follow him up there, but the wolves ran away, making him wonder why they left. He peeked at where the wolves had run and saw that they were surrounding Shenzhen's group. He felt genuinely sorry for the 4 of them, but he figured since they could survive the Jackalope King's attack, demon wolves shouldn't pose much of a problem. Xiao Zhang aimed his arrow and released it, stabbing a wolf in the eye. He then asked Shenzhen what was wrong with the underground dungeon and why there were so many armored demon wolves, but before Chen Xin could reply, the wolf that Xiao Zhang had injured pushed him to the ground and bit his arm. Looking closer, he saw that it was in berserk mode, making him wonder why the wolves were behaving this way when they hadn't provoked them. Chen Xin swung his sword at the wolf, attacking Xiao Zhang while shouting at his group to focus on their duty and not to be dazed. Chen Xin called Jin Young Kang and ordered him to heal Zhao Zhang first, to which Yun Kang immediately obeyed. Chen Xin then approached Kiwi's Enzai and ordered her to cast explosive fireballs at the wolves. Young Kang wondered if they were